Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Card Talk. This is episode 4, of course. And, it's still the beginning. Oh my gosh. It's the beginning of January, like, somewhere around January, like, 9th, something like that. And, so, uh, I'm so freaking tired. I probably got, like, 4.5 hours of sleep last night, which is, like, a ton for me. No, it isn't. Anyway, so in the news, you guys hear that this dude named Soleimani, this Iran general, was killed by the United States, United States government? Because here's the thing, I understand this guy was like a terrorist and shit, but when you kill a high-ranking official, that is a declaration of war in a lot of nations' eyes. Right, it was how we got into World War I, and it could very well be how we get into the new Iran war. So, I don't think he should have done it. I don't think he should have killed Soleimani. And then, consider this also, right? Yeah, Soleimani's killed millions of people. So has Trump. So has Obama. So has Bush. Hell, so has Clinton. Right? The president of the United States for decades now has been mass bombing, has been having troops in foreign countries, killing thousands and thousands of innocents, and having thousands of U.S. soldiers who shouldn't even be there in the first place be killed as well. We're the bad guys just as much as they are, right? Don't pretend that just because you're an American that immediately makes the American government the good guys. It's a lot more complicated than that. Heck, the US government, most of the reason we're in the Middle East in the first place, same reason we were in Venezuela, is because we want their oil. And we're going to fight. We're literally going to put soldiers on the ground so we can have their oil. And that's not right at all. And when people say the troops are protecting us, they're keeping us safe, I really wish that was the case. But it's simply not. Right? It wasn't the case in Vietnam. It wasn't the case in Korea. Now listen, I don't want to diss on Vietnam or Korean veterans, because my grandpa was a veteran. My other grandpa is a veteran, is also a Vietnam veteran. Both of them served in the Navy. But, right, my grandpa will tell you that we didn't need to go into those countries, right? It wasn't necessary for America to be in Vietnam. It wasn't necessary for America to be in Korea, right? It was the Korean conflict. It was a Vietnamese conflict. Neither of them were American conflicts. We shouldn't have had a draft for them. Heck, the draft shouldn't even be a thing. If we're going to have a military, it should be a voluntary military, not, right? In my opinion, a draft is a secondhand form of slavery. That's what I say, because that's essentially what it is. If you are a male over the age of 18, you do not have a choice. And because your choice is taken away, that by definition makes you a slave, even if you're getting paid. If you are doing it willingly, you're not a slave. You could call yourself a patriot. If you enlist, you're not a slave, right? You're doing it willingly. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot of people who enlist because there's a draft, right? And there's a lot of other people, like Representative Tulsi Gabbard, presidential candidate Adam Kokesh, and a lot of other people who are speaking out about these wars because they were tricked by the government. They were told a bunch of lies to go into these wars. Now listen, if I were president of the United States, wouldn't give a shit about political party. My foreign policy advisor would absolutely be, my head foreign policy advisor would be Tulsi Gabbard. I'd have advisors across the political spectrum depending on what their focus is. Because, looking at my isidewith.com results, I'm a libertarian. I agree 93% with libertarian candidates in general, and 86% with Gary Johnson, 85% with Todd What's-His-Bucket. Anyway, so I'm for the most part libertarian, right? But even Republicans and Democrats, right? I agree 64% with Andrew Yang. So I'm 64% Yang Gang, as I tell my friends. I agree about 54% with Donald Trump. I agree 50% with Tulsi Gabbard. I agree 20% with Amy Klobuchar and 24% with Joe Biden. So there's middle ground. At least 1/5 of my views are shared with literally everyone. I doubt you can name a single person who I don't share at least 20% of my views with. That's 1/5 of everything I believe, right? Don't tell me that we can't get along when we agree even 20% of the time. 20% doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have 100 policies, that's something you agree on more than 20 with, right? Bernie Sanders, I agree more than 40% of the time with. So I think it's time to put aside political parties, put aside ideology, and just do what's right. Unite. I think we should unite to forward our agenda, especially. So a lot of people don't actually know what libertarianism is. And that can be an issue in and of itself. Right? So libertarianism is actually pretty simple. Libertarians are individuals who believe in a set of principles. These principles are self-ownership. You own your body. You have the right to bodily autonomy. You should have the right to put into it whatever you want. You should have the right to do with it whatever you want, as long as you're not, engaging in activity that may harm or threaten the life, liberty, or property of another individual. We also believe in the non-aggression principle, which is a sort of a shoot-off of the principle of self-ownership. The non-aggression principle states that it is morally wrong to initiate physical force, fraud, or theft against another individual or their property. If you're not engaging in one of these three things, right? Physical force obviously includes murder, rape, assault. Anyway, if you're not doing one of these things that are very obviously, exponentially, morally wrong, more than 100% of honest, sane people believe these things are wrong, right? And if you're not doing any of these things, you should have the right to engage in whatever the frick activity you want, right? Because of these principles, we believe in either an extremely limited government or no government at all, depending on which libertarian you ask. Yes, anarchists are libertarians, but so are classical liberals, so are minarchists, so are paleo-libertarians. There's lots of different kinds of libertarianism, just like there's lots of different branches of conservatism and liberalism, right? There's not just one kind of liberalism. It's like the difference between progressivism and moderate liberalism is exponential, right? It's Bernie versus Biden. Right? It's, AOC versus Amy Klobuchar versus, Nancy Pelosi. She's a moderate. Even Barack Obama is a moderate Democrat. And here's the thing, guys. Whether you're progressive or not, it's fine, but I got a message for progressives. Your party's kind of gone insane, right? You guys, they're ignorant of economics. They're ignorant of reality. They think that government should be able to solve everything, and it simply can't, okay? The welfare state, as good as you think it may be, it's the cause It's the root cause of the single parent epidemic in African American communities. It's the root cause of a lot of problems. There's a lot of people. Now, listen, there are good people living off of welfare. There are good people living off of disability benefits. I'm not saying they don't exist. But there are also hundreds of thousands of people who are leeching off of the welfare system. So if welfare is going to exist at all, in my opinion, it should exist on a community level. It should be voluntary. We should help one another out rather than be forced through government coercion to help others out. But if welfare is going to exist at all, at the very least, we should police it. So make sure that recipients of welfare are, whether they be disabled or have to have a job within a certain amount of months if they're not disabled, if they're not injured, because we can't have bums living off of welfare. It simply isn't right to tax thousands and thousands of dollars from the middle class and perhaps millions or billions from the upper class just to give to people who are going to be lazy asses, right? Nor can we give welfare to drug addicts. Now listen, I'm not a conservative. I believe that we should end the war on drugs completely. Decriminalize all substances. With that being said, I do not believe that taxpayers should be forced to pay into the consequences of drug addiction. Right? Unfortunately, right now, more than 50% of federal prisoners are in for drug-related offenses, and that is costing us billions and billions of dollars per year. So my policies so far: reform welfare and the war on drugs. Both would save us billions and billions of dollars. Here's another policy for you: bring the damn troops home. Like I said, Tulsi Gabbard would be my foreign policy advisor if I were president of the United States. I can't be president of the United States because I'm only 18 years old and I'm not a well-established figure. But if I were president, I would bring the troops home immediately. Right, and balance the federal budget, damn it. The United States is now $23 trillion in debt, $90 trillion in total debt overall. Right? That's absurd. And for some damn reason, Democrats think that if we just tax the wealthy a little more, we can afford these $50 trillion programs like Medicare for All. We can afford forcing private businesses to pay every employee at least $15. These idiots are economically illiterate, and they simply don't understand the consequences of their proposals. They should read a book on economics, like Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell, The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich Hayek, that's a good one, and Socialism by Ludwig von Mises, right? Now, if you read one of these three books and you're still a progressive, good for you. But if you read one, I'm thinking that if you actually read it and take in the context, you won't be a progressive anymore. So, that's pretty much my 2 cents. I don't know if there's any other issues you guys want me to talk about. This episode's all politics, so if you don't like politics, that sucks. If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to have a debate with any of you anytime. I'm open to changing my mind. I'm not some like echo chamber lover. In fact, I go out of my way. I call myself looking for trouble on Instagram because I go out of my way looking for people who disagree with me and start arguing with them for no reason whatsoever other than you have an opinion, it's wrong. Let me prove you wrong. Now, a lot of people, they love their echo chambers, so they don't want to fight me. Instead, they'll insult me. Right? Especially especially, and this is really sad, the really sad truth about the modern left wing. It's really, really sad. Now, I'm not saying all progressives are like this. There are a lot of respectable progressives who are willing to debate, especially on the Young Turks network. I got a lot of respect for, like, the dude who does secular talk, Kyle something. I'm not gonna lie, I have some respect for Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian. I have respect for all of them, and I listen to their points of view quite regularly. I think they're wrong, but I'm not going to trap myself in an echo chamber. I watch Fox News, I watch CNN, I watch MSNBC, I watch Young Turks. My favorite news organizations are obviously the Reason Foundation and the Fox Business Network, because those are more libertarian, That's my bias. But I don't constantly adhere to my bias, unlike a lot of people, left and right? Especially my younger brother right now, who's 15. Whenever there's something he and I disagree on, rather than saying, oh, I disagree with you and here's why, he says, you ought to talk to my dad about that because you're wrong. Now listen, I love my father, but, I'm not just going to have one conversation with my dad and then say, oh, I was wrong. Oops. No, we can disagree. We can be respectful, Here's another thing, right? People think that conservatism is all about, religious bigotry, and it's not. I actually grew up in a secular right-wing household. I know, secularism is most common among the left, right? But my dad's actually agnostic, as am I. I was raised sort of Mormon, but after a while it just kind of faded away. Anyway, yeah, I was raised in an agnostic conservative household, a secular conservative household. And that's the thing. It's possible. Secular conservatism is a thing. The United States was built on secular values. Whether the American Constitution Party wants to think otherwise, it's fine. And, again, those of you who think America is built on Christian ideals or Jewish ideals, feel free to argue with me. Feel free to debate. Feel free to give your opinion. I'm always open to new ideas. Now, of course, that's not the case, right? A lot of the founding fathers were deists, and the founding fathers in general were of a lot of varying views. For example, Ben Franklin was an abolitionist, while most of the rest of them were prominent slave owners. Heck, Jefferson was a slave owner, despite claiming he opposed slavery. But now, aside from the fact that he was a slave owner, obviously a misogynist, a homophobe, obviously, because it was a different society, they didn't understand that these things were wrong. But I have a lot of respect for the philosophy of a lot of these people. Jefferson, Adamson, Washington. And no, I don't agree with everything. I'm not a Federalist, but I'll still read the Federalist Papers, and I'll read quotes from Alexander Hamilton, for example, and especially the one thing that all the founding fathers agreed on was everything written in the Bill of Rights. They especially emphasized the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, right? Whether they're Federalist, an anti-Federalist, or nonpartisan like Washington, every single one of them believed so strongly that the people should have the right to bear arms. And when I say arms, I don't mean, little shotguns or pistols. I mean full-on, whatever weapons that the government has. And granted, there was no standing army at the time. The people were the standing army of the time. They were the militia. A lot of people will argue that the military today is the militia. But, sorry. Excuse me. Anyway, the purpose of the militia was to regulate the state, right? Being necessary to the security of a free state. That means that, right, in order to guarantee a free society, a society in which government does not overstep, the people must have the right to bear arms, right? That's what the comma is. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's a comma before that. Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state is a separate clause, which is implying that the people have a right to form a militia in order to take up arms against the government. Now, in the current society, it's really hard for the people to take up arms against the government because the government has banned fully automatic weapons from civilian use. Full auto weapons are only available in 2 states. They cost thousands and thousands of dollars. They require licenses and paperwork that sometimes take years to fill out. That is an infringement on the Second Amendment. Now, a lot of people think, oh my God, Michael, you actually think that ordinary people should have the right to own machine guns and fucking tanks and nukes? Yes, because it's the only way we can defend ourselves against tyrannical government. But here's another thing, right? The United States military, right, as much as it's run by government, right? It's obviously headed by the President of the United States. He's the commander-in-chief. But a lot of people who are in the military would proudly side with the American people over the government. Because the reason a lot of people join the military is that they believe that military service that by serving in the military, they're protecting their families. And I respect this view. Sadly, it's not necessarily the case. It's a little more complicated than that. And people who just follow orders without questioning, I hope you have some kind of omen. Because you shouldn't just follow orders without questioning them when those orders could very well be wrong. You don't know where those orders are coming from. And sadly, in military and in law enforcement, they're taught to obey what they're told, pretty much, right? They're taught to be obedient slaves, essentially. But more than 50% of the military would gladly side with the American people over the government. A lot of military veterans today are angry at the government because the government tricked them into thinking that their service in the military would protect them, would protect their family, that it was just, that it was, especially after 9/11, when a lot of people enlisted. Now, I was only a few months old during 9/11, but I've seen footage and I sort of know the history. So anyway, especially after 9/11, people were scared. So they joined the military in flocks. Military and government spending in general went way up during the Bush admin, right? The Bush administration. Hundreds of billions of new tax dollars were spent on government programs, such as the TSA, the NSA, and of course, the military-industrial complex was expanded exponentially. Now, okay, so we've talked about military, we've talked about libertarianism, we've talked about the war on drugs, we've talked about welfare. What else should we talk about? I don't know. It's been a pretty good talk. I think it's over 20 minutes now, so not a lot of people are going to listen to the whole thing. So I'm probably just going to upload it now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe if you haven't already, comment your opinions on the subjects I've talked about in the comment section, and again, I'm fully open to discussion. If you want to discuss something, just let me know. hit me up. We might be able to arrange a debate or some kind of one-on-one discussion regarding it. Until then, until next time, I'll see y'all later. Bye.